You've been told that manifestation is complicated, that you need to follow 17 different steps, visualize for hours, repeat affirmations until your throat is raw, and maybe, just maybe, if you're lucky and you've done everything perfectly, the universe might throw you a bone. But what if I told you that quantum manifestation is actually stunningly simple? So simple, in fact, that an entire industry has been built around making sure you never discover just how effortless it really is. Here's what's really happening. While you've been struggling with vision boards and trying to force feelings you don't actually feel, there's a quantum reality operating right under your nose that makes manifestation as natural as breathing. The self-help industry doesn't want you to know this because Simple doesn't sell courses. Simple doesn't require coaching programs. Simple doesn't need you coming back month after month, year after year, searching for the missing piece. So let me ask you something. Have you ever noticed how the things you manifested most easily in your life happened when you weren't trying? When you were just being yourself, living naturally, and suddenly opportunities appeared, money flowed, relationships blossomed? That wasn't coincidence. That was quantum manifestation in its purest form. And it happened because you were doing something the industry tells you is impossible. You were embodying your desire without effort. The quantum field doesn't respond to your trying. It responds to your being. And there's a scientific reason for this that will change everything you think you know about how reality actually works. See, in quantum physics, there's something called the observer effect. When scientists observe a quantum particle, the very act of observation causes the particle to collapse from a wave of infinite possibilities into a specific, measurable reality. Your consciousness literally determines what becomes real. But here's the part they don't tell you in those manifestation courses. The observer effect doesn't happen when you're straining to observe something. It happens when you're naturally, effortlessly being the observer. Think about it this way. When you're desperately trying to manifest something, you're not observing from a place of natural being. You're observing from a place of lack, of wanting, of not having. And what does the quantum field reflect back to you? More lack, more wanting, more not having. The field is incredibly precise. It gives you exactly what you're broadcasting, not what you're hoping for. But when you embody the state of already having, when you naturally exist in the frequency of your desire fulfilled, something completely different happens. You're no longer observing from lack. You're observing from wholeness. And the quantum field, being the perfect mirror it is, reflects wholeness back to you in the form of physical manifestations. This is why children are such natural manifestors. Watch a child play. They don't visualize having a tea party. They have a tea party. They don't affirm that they're a superhero. They are a superhero. Their imagination isn't separate from their reality. It is their reality. And because they embody their desires so completely, so naturally, those desires have a way of materializing in their world with shocking frequency. The self-help industry has convinced you that you need to recover this natural ability through complex techniques and rigid protocols. But you don't need to recover anything. You need to remember. You need to stop doing manifestation and start being manifestation. Let me share something with you that might sound controversial. The reason most manifestation techniques don't work isn't because they're wrong. It's because they're designed to keep you in a state of trying rather than being. Think about affirmations. When you repeat, "I am wealthy," while feeling poor, what are you actually doing? You're reinforcing the gap between what you're saying and what you're experiencing. You're literally practicing the vibration of not having what you want. The quantum field doesn't hear your words. It reads your frequency. And your frequency is determined not by what you say but by what you embody. This is why some people can manifest effortlessly without ever learning a single technique, while others can master every method in the book and still struggle. It's not about the technique. It's about the state of being you're operating from. Here's where quantum physics gets really fascinating. There's a phenomenon called quantum coherence, where particles become synchronized and operate as a unified field. When you achieve coherence between your conscious desires and your subconscious embodiment, you become a unified field. You're no longer split between wanting something and being someone who doesn't have it. You're whole, and wholeness is the most powerful creative force in the universe. But achieving this coherence isn't about forcing your subconscious to believe something. It's about discovering that at the deepest level, you already are what you're trying to become. The wealthy version of you isn't someone you need to create. It's someone you need to remember. The successful version of you isn't a future possibility. It's a present reality that's been waiting for you to stop trying long enough to notice it's already here. This is going to sound radical, but stay with me. What if the version of you that has everything you desire already exists? Not in some imaginary future, but right now, in this moment, in a parallel quantum reality. What if manifestation isn't about creating something new, but about shifting your awareness to the reality where you already have what you want? Quantum physics tells us that all possibilities exist simultaneously until consciousness chooses which one to experience. You're not manifesting your desires into existence. You're choosing to experience the reality where your desires are already fulfilled. And the way you make that choice isn't through effort or technique. It's through embodiment. It's through becoming so naturally, so effortlessly the person who has what you want that the quantum field has no choice but to reflect that reality back to you. I want you to think about the last time you manifested something easily. Really think about it. What was your state of being? Were you trying to manifest it, or were you just naturally living as if it was already yours? Were you focused on the technique, or were you focused on being yourself? I guarantee you were embodying the fulfilled state, without effort, without strain, without the desperate energy of wanting. This is what the self-help industry doesn't want you to understand. They need you to believe that manifestation is hard, that it requires their special knowledge, their secret techniques, their expensive programs. Because the moment you realize that manifestation is as natural as breathing, as simple as being yourself, you don't need them anymore. You become your own source of creative power. But here's the thing about being your own source. It requires you to let go of the story that you're broken, that you're lacking something, that you need to be fixed or improved or upgraded. The quantum field responds to who you are, not who you're trying to become. And who you are, at the deepest level, is already whole, already abundant, already everything you've been seeking. The reason this feels hard to believe is because you've been conditioned to identify with your circumstances rather than your essence. You look at your bank account and think, I am poor. You look at your relationship status and think, I am alone. You look at your career and think, I am unsuccessful. But these are just temporary experiences, not eternal truths about who you are. Your essence, your quantum signature, is pure creative potential. It's the same creative force that spins galaxies and grows trees and beats your heart without your conscious effort. This force doesn't struggle. It doesn't try. It doesn't need techniques or methods or systems. It simply is. And in its being, it creates effortlessly. When you align with this essence, when you remember that you are this creative force expressing itself as a human being, manifestation becomes as natural as your heartbeat. You don't have to learn how to manifest any more than you have to learn how to digest your food or grow your hair. It's built into the very fabric of who you are. So let me ask you this. What would change in your life if you stopped trying to manifest and started being the person who naturally attracts what you desire? What would shift if you let go of all the techniques and simply embodied the frequency of your fulfilled desires? What would happen if you trusted the quantum field to respond to your being rather than your doing? The answer might surprise you. Because when you stop trying to control the how and simply embody the what, the universe has infinite ways to bring your desires into form, ways you never could have planned or predicted or forced into existence, ways that are so much more elegant and effortless than anything your struggling mind could have conceived. This is quantum manifestation in its purest form, not a technique to be learned, but a truth to be remembered, not a skill to be developed, but a nature to be embodied. And the beautiful thing about truth is that once you see it, you can't unsee it. Once you remember who you really are, you can't forget it. But there's something even deeper happening here that most people miss entirely. Something about the relationship between your heart and your brain that changes everything about how manifestation actually works. Are you ready to go deeper into what's really happening in your quantum field? Here's what's really happening in your body when you manifest effortlessly, and why the self-help industry will never teach you this. Scientists at the HeartMath Institute have discovered that your heart generates an electromagnetic field that's 60 times stronger than your brain's electrical field. 60 times. Your heart isn't just pumping blood. It's broadcasting a signal into the quantum field that's more powerful than all your thoughts combined. But here's where it gets incredible. When you're in a state of heart coherence, when you're feeling genuine appreciation, love, or fulfillment, your heart's electromagnetic field becomes highly organized and coherent. This coherent signal doesn't just stay in your body, it radiates outward, influencing the quantum field around you for up to 8 feet in every direction. You're literally broadcasting your internal state into reality, and reality is responding by reorganizing itself to match that signal. Think about this for a moment. Every time you've manifested something beautiful in your life, you weren't thinking your way into it. You were feeling your way into it. You were in a state of heart coherence, broadcasting the frequency of fulfillment, and the quantum field was responding by bringing you experiences that matched that frequency. This isn't metaphysical speculation. This is measurable science. The problem is that most manifestation techniques focus on your mind while completely ignoring your heart. They tell you to visualize, affirm, and think your way into a new reality. But your thoughts only generate electrical activity. Your feelings generate electromagnetic fields. And electromagnetic fields are what actually interact with the quantum field to create physical reality. This is why you can think positive thoughts all day long and still struggle to manifest. Your mind might be saying, "I am abundant," but if your heart is feeling lack, scarcity, or desperation, that's the signal you're broadcasting. And the quantum field, being the perfect mirror it is, reflects back more experiences of lack, scarcity, and desperation. But when you shift into genuine heart coherence, when you feel authentic gratitude for what you already have, when you embody the warm satisfaction of your desires already fulfilled, something magical happens. Your heart's electromagnetic field becomes a powerful magnet, drawing experiences, opportunities, and resources that match its coherent frequency. I want you to imagine your heart as a quantum radio transmitter. Right now, in this moment, it's broadcasting a specific frequency based on what you're feeling. If you're feeling frustrated about your financial situation, you're broadcasting the frequency of financial struggle. If you're feeling lonely, you're broadcasting the frequency of separation. If you're feeling like manifestation is hard, you're broadcasting the frequency of difficulty. But what if you could tune your heart to a different station? What if you could feel right now the warm satisfaction of having everything you desire, not as a technique or a practice, but as a simple recognition of what's already true at the quantum level? What if abundance isn't something you need to create, but something you need to tune into? This is where most people get stuck. They try to feel abundant while looking at their empty bank account. They try to feel loved while focusing on their loneliness. They try to feel successful while dwelling on their failures. But you can't tune into the frequency of fulfillment while focusing on the evidence of lack. It's like trying to listen to classical music while tuning your radio to a rock station. The secret is to understand that your current circumstances are not your current reality. They're the delayed reflection of past frequencies you were broadcasting. Your bank account reflects the financial frequency you were embodying weeks or months ago. Your relationships reflect the love frequency you were broadcasting in the past. Your career reflects the success frequency you were transmitting before now. This means that your current circumstances have absolutely nothing to do with your current creative power. Right now, in this moment, you can choose to broadcast a completely different frequency. And as you sustain that new frequency, reality has no choice but to reorganize itself to match what you're transmitting. But here's what the industry doesn't want you to know. You don't need to sustain this frequency for hours or days or weeks. The quantum field responds to coherent signals almost instantly. When you genuinely embody the feeling of your desire fulfilled, when your heart broadcasts authentic satisfaction and gratitude, the field begins reorganizing immediately. The manifestation might not appear instantly, but the creative process begins the moment you achieve true coherence. Let me give you an example of how this works in real life. Sarah had been struggling with her business for months. She was doing all the right things, following all the strategies, but money wasn't flowing. She was constantly worried about finances, checking her bank account multiple times a day, feeling stressed about making ends meet. Her heart was broadcasting the frequency of financial struggle, and reality was responding by bringing her more experiences of struggle. Then something shifted. Instead of focusing on what she didn't have, she started feeling genuine appreciation for what she did have. Her health, her creativity, her passion for her work. She stopped checking her bank account obsessively and started feeling grateful for the money that was already flowing, even if it wasn't as much as she wanted. Her heart shifted into coherence, broadcasting appreciation instead of anxiety. Within 2 weeks, everything changed. A client she hadn't heard from in months reached out with a large project. Someone recommended her services to a high-paying customer. An unexpected refund appeared in her account. The money didn't come from where she expected. It came from the quantum field responding to her new frequency. This is how quantum manifestation actually works. It's not about forcing specific outcomes through willpower or technique. It's about broadcasting the frequency of fulfillment and allowing the field to respond in whatever way serves your highest good. Sometimes the response looks exactly like what you expected. Sometimes it looks completely different but feels even better. The key is to understand that you're not trying to manipulate reality. You're aligning with reality. You're tuning into the frequency of the life you desire and allowing that frequency to express itself through your experience. This requires a fundamental shift in how you see yourself and your relationship to the world around you. Most people see themselves as separate from what they want. They see abundance as something outside themselves that they need to attract. They see success as something they need to achieve. They see love as something they need to find. But in quantum reality, there is no separation. You and your desires exist in the same field of infinite possibility. The only thing that creates the experience of separation is the frequency you're broadcasting. When you broadcast lack, you experience separation from abundance. When you broadcast loneliness, you experience separation from love. When you broadcast struggle, you experience separation from ease. But when you broadcast fulfillment, appreciation, and coherence, you experience unity with everything you desire, not because you've attracted it from somewhere else, but because you've remembered that it was never separate from you in the first place. This is why children are such natural manifestors. They don't see themselves as separate from their desires. When a child wants to be a dinosaur, they become a dinosaur. When they want to have a magical adventure, they have a magical adventure. Their heart naturally broadcasts the frequency of fulfillment because they haven't learned to separate themselves from what they want. You had this same natural ability once, before the world taught you that you were separate from your desires, before you learned to identify with lack instead of abundance, before you started believing that manifestation was hard. That ability is still there, waiting for you to remember it, waiting for you to stop trying so hard and start being so naturally that the quantum field has no choice but to reflect your true nature back to you. But there's something even more profound happening here, something about the nature of time itself that changes everything about how quickly manifestation can occur. Because what if I told you that from the quantum field's perspective, your desires are already fulfilled? What if the only thing standing between you and your manifestations is your belief in linear time? In quantum physics, there's no such thing as past, present, and future. There's only now. All possibilities exist simultaneously in what scientists call the eternal present moment. The version of you that has everything you desire doesn't exist in some future timeline. It exists right now, in this moment, in a parallel quantum reality that's just as real as the one you're currently experiencing. When you truly understand this, manifestation becomes less about creating something new and more about shifting your awareness to the reality where you already have what you want. You're not trying to bring your desires from the future into the present. You're choosing to experience the present moment where your desires are already fulfilled. This is why manifestation can happen so quickly when you're in true alignment. You're not waiting for the universe to create something for you. You're simply shifting your awareness to the quantum reality where it already exists. And the moment you make that shift authentically with genuine heart coherence, your physical reality begins reorganizing itself to match your new awareness. Think about it like this. Imagine you're watching television, and you're on a channel that's showing a drama about struggle and lack. You don't like what you're seeing, so you decide to change the channel. You pick up the remote and tune to a different frequency. Instantly, you're watching a completely different program, a comedy about abundance and joy. The comedy wasn't created when you changed the channel. It was already broadcasting. You simply chose to tune into it. Your life works the same way. Right now, there are infinite versions of your life broadcasting simultaneously in the quantum field. There's a version where you're struggling financially, and there's a version where money flows effortlessly. There's a version where you're lonely, and there's a version where you're deeply loved. There's a version where manifestation feels hard, and there's a version where it's as natural as breathing. The question isn't which version is real. They're all real. The question is which version you're tuned into. And you tune in not with your mind, but with your heart. Not with your thoughts, but with your feelings. Not with your trying, but with your being. When you embody the frequency of the reality you prefer, you're not creating that reality. You're choosing to experience it. And the beautiful thing about choice is that it can happen in an instant. You don't need time to choose. You don't need preparation to choose. You don't need permission to choose. You simply choose, and in that choosing, everything changes. This is what the self-help industry will never teach you because it would put them out of business overnight. They need you to believe that manifestation takes time. that it requires their guidance, that you need to work through your blocks and heal your wounds and clear your resistance before you can have what you want. But what if your blocks, wounds, and resistance only exist in the reality you're currently tuned into? What if in the reality where you have everything you desire, those limitations don't even exist? I'm not saying you should ignore your healing or avoid dealing with your challenges. I'm saying that you don't have to wait until you're perfectly healed to start experiencing the life you want. You can choose to tune into the frequency of fulfillment right now, exactly as you are, with all your imperfections and limitations. And as you sustain that frequency, you'll find that many of your blocks and limitations simply dissolve, not because you worked through them, but because they don't exist in the reality you're now experiencing. This requires a radical shift in how you approach personal growth. Instead of trying to fix yourself so you can have what you want, you start having what you want so you can become who you're meant to be. Instead of healing your way into abundance, you abundance your way into healing. Instead of working on your self-worth so you can attract love, you embody love so completely that your self-worth naturally expands to match it. Are you starting to see how backwards most personal development really is? How it keeps you focused on what's wrong with you instead of what's right with you? How it makes you work for what's already yours instead of simply claiming what's already yours? The quantum field doesn't care about your past mistakes or your current limitations. It only cares about the frequency you're broadcasting right now. And right now, you have the power to broadcast any frequency you choose. The frequency of abundance, the frequency of love, the frequency of success, the frequency of joy, the frequency of fulfillment. But here's where most people sabotage themselves. They try to broadcast these frequencies from their mind instead of their heart. They think abundant thoughts while feeling poor. They visualize success while feeling like failures. They affirm love while feeling unworthy. And then they wonder why manifestation isn't working. Your mind can lie, but your heart can't. The quantum field reads your heart's electromagnetic signature, not your mental declarations. This is why authentic feeling is so much more powerful than positive thinking. When you genuinely feel abundant, grateful, and fulfilled, your heart broadcasts a coherent signal that the field responds to immediately. But when you try to think your way into these feelings, you create internal conflict that actually blocks manifestation. So how do you access authentic feelings of fulfillment when your circumstances seem to suggest otherwise? How do you feel abundant when your bank account is empty? How do you feel loved when you're alone? How do you feel successful when you're struggling? The answer is simpler than you think, but it requires you to understand something fundamental about the nature of feeling itself. Are you ready to discover the secret that makes authentic embodiment not just possible, but effortless? Here's the secret that changes everything about how you access authentic feelings of fulfillment. You don't generate these feelings by looking at your external circumstances. You access them by remembering that feelings are not reactions to what's happening around you. Feelings are choices about what's happening within you. And what's happening within you is pure creative potential expressing itself as your unique human experience. Let me explain what I mean. Right now, as you're listening to this, you have the capacity to feel grateful. Not because your life is perfect, but because you're alive to experience it. You have the capacity to feel abundant, not because you have everything you want, but because you have the creative power to experience anything you choose. You have the capacity to feel loved, not because someone is loving you in this moment, but because love is the very essence of who you are. These feelings aren't dependent on external validation. They're expressions of your fundamental nature. When you feel grateful, you're not responding to your circumstances. You're expressing your natural appreciation for existence itself. When you feel abundant, you're not celebrating your possessions. You're recognizing your infinite creative capacity. When you feel loved, you're not receiving something from outside yourself. You're acknowledging the love that you are. This is where the self-help industry has led you astray. They've taught you that feelings are effects of causes, that you feel good when good things happen and feel bad when bad things happen. But quantum physics reveals something completely different. Your feelings are causes, not effects. They're creative forces that shape your reality, not reactions to a reality that already exists. When you understand this, everything changes. You stop waiting for your circumstances to improve so you can feel better. You start feeling better so your circumstances can improve. You stop trying to attract abundance from outside yourself. You start expressing the abundance that you are, and external abundance becomes its natural reflection. But here's what makes this practical rather than just philosophical. There's a specific way to access these authentic feelings that bypasses your mind's resistance completely. It's based on a quantum principle called superposition, where particles exist in multiple states simultaneously until observation collapses them into a specific reality. Right now, you exist in superposition. You're simultaneously the version of yourself that's struggling and the version that's thriving. You're both the person who lacks and the person who has everything. You're the one who's alone and the one who's deeply connected. All these versions are equally real and equally present in this moment. The question is, which version are you choosing to observe? Which aspect of your multidimensional self are you collapsing into reality through your attention and feeling? When you focus on the struggling version, you collapse into that reality. When you focus on the thriving version, you collapse into that reality instead. Here's how this works practically. Instead of trying to feel abundant while looking at your empty bank account, you tune into the version of you that's naturally abundant. You don't try to generate abundance, you simply observe it. You notice the abundant version of yourself that exists right now in quantum superposition, and you allow that version to become your primary reality. This isn't visualization or imagination. This is quantum observation. You're not pretending to be abundant. You're recognizing the abundance that already exists within your multidimensional nature. And the moment you truly observe it, it begins collapsing into your physical experience. Let me give you a specific example of how this feels. Maria had been struggling with loneliness for years. She tried dating apps, social events, personal development workshops, but nothing seemed to work. She was focused on the lonely version of herself, constantly observing her isolation, and the quantum field kept reflecting that reality back to her. Then she learned about superposition. Instead of trying to attract love from outside herself, she started observing the version of herself that was already deeply loved, not by imagining it, but by recognizing it. She noticed that right now, in this moment, there was a version of her that felt completely connected, totally cherished, absolutely adored. This version wasn't somewhere else. It was right here, existing in superposition with her lonely self. As she began observing this loved version more consistently, something beautiful happened. She started feeling genuinely fulfilled in her own company. She stopped desperately seeking connection and started naturally attracting it. Within a month, she met someone who reflected back to her the love she was already embodying. But more importantly, she realized she had never actually been lonely. She had simply been observing the lonely aspect of her multidimensional self. This is the power of quantum observation. You're not trying to become someone different. You're choosing to observe a different aspect of who you already are. And what you observe consistently becomes your dominant reality. But here's where most people get tripped up. They try to observe their abundant self while still believing in scarcity. They try to observe their successful self while still identifying with failure. They try to observe their loved self while still feeling unworthy. This creates what quantum physicists call interference patterns, where conflicting observations cancel each other out. To avoid this interference, you need to understand something crucial about the nature of belief itself. Beliefs aren't truths about reality. They're habits of observation. When you believe you're poor, you're not acknowledging a fact about your bank account. You're practicing the habit of observing the poor version of yourself. When you believe you're unlovable, you're not recognizing your inherent worth. You're habitually observing the unlovable aspect of your multidimensional nature. The beautiful thing about habits is that they can be changed, not through force or willpower, but through gentle, consistent practice. Every time you catch yourself observing the struggling version of yourself, you can simply shift your attention to the thriving version. Every time you notice yourself focusing on lack, you can choose to observe abundance instead. This isn't about denying your challenges or pretending your problems don't exist. It's about recognizing that your challenges and problems are just one aspect of your multidimensional reality. There's another aspect where those challenges have been resolved, where those problems have transformed into opportunities, where what seemed impossible has become inevitable. Both aspects are equally real. Both are equally present. The question is simply which one you're choosing to make primary through your consistent observation. And here's the quantum secret that changes everything. The aspect you observe most consistently doesn't just become your dominant experience. It begins influencing and transforming all the other aspects. When you consistently observe your abundant self, your struggling self begins to dissolve. Not because you've destroyed it, but because abundance is a higher frequency than scarcity, and higher frequencies naturally transform lower ones. When you consistently observe your loved self, your lonely self begins to heal. When you consistently observe your successful self, Your failing self begins to evolve. This is why quantum manifestation feels so effortless when you're doing it correctly. You're not fighting against your current reality. You're not trying to force change through willpower. You're simply choosing to observe a different aspect of what's already present, and allowing that observation to naturally transform your entire experience. But there's something even more profound happening here that most people never discover. Something about the relationship between your individual consciousness and the collective quantum field that makes manifestation not just personal, but planetary. Because what if your individual transformation is actually contributing to the evolution of consciousness itself? In quantum physics, there's a phenomenon called quantum entanglement, where particles become so connected that changing one instantly affects the other, regardless of the distance between them. Your consciousness is entangled with every other consciousness on the planet. When you shift from observing lack to observing abundance, you're not just changing your personal reality. You're contributing to a collective shift toward abundance for everyone. This means that your manifestation practice isn't selfish, it's service. Every time you choose to observe the thriving version of yourself, you're making it easier for others to access their thriving selves. Every time you embody abundance, love, or success, you're adding that frequency to the collective field, making it more available for everyone. This is why it's so important to understand quantum manifestation correctly. When you try to manifest from ego, from a desire to have more than others or to prove your worth through external achievements, you create resistance in the field. But when you manifest from service, from a genuine desire to express your highest potential and contribute to the collective good, the field supports you completely. The universe wants you to thrive, not because you're special or chosen, but because your thriving contributes to the thriving of the whole. Your abundance makes abundance more available for everyone. Your love makes love more accessible for all. Your success makes success more possible for the collective. When you understand this, manifestation becomes less about getting what you want and more about expressing who you are. Less about attracting from outside and more about radiating from within. Less about having and more about being. And paradoxically, this shift in motivation makes manifestation infinitely more powerful and effortless, because the quantum field responds most powerfully to authentic expression. When you're trying to manifest from need or desire, you're broadcasting a frequency of incompleteness. But when you're manifesting from service and authentic expression, you're broadcasting a frequency of wholeness. And wholeness is the most creative force in the universe. This is why some people seem to manifest effortlessly while others struggle, despite knowing all the techniques. The effortless manifestors aren't trying to get something. They're expressing something. They're not coming from emptiness trying to fill themselves up. They're coming from fullness trying to pour themselves out. And the quantum field responds to fullness by creating more opportunities for expression. So let me ask you something that might shift everything. What if you stopped trying to manifest what you want and started expressing who you are? What if instead of focusing on attracting abundance, you focused on radiating the creative force that you are? What if instead of trying to find love, you focused on being loved so completely that love has no choice but to surround you? What if your desires aren't things you need to get, but aspects of yourself you need to express? What if abundance isn't something you lack, but something you are? What if success isn't something you need to achieve, but something you need to embody? What if love isn't something you need to find, but something you need to be? When you make this shift from having to being, from getting to giving, from attracting to expressing, something magical happens. You stop being at the mercy of external circumstances. You stop waiting for permission from the universe. You stop needing validation from others. You become a creative force unto yourself, generating the experiences you desire through the simple act of being authentically, completely, unapologetically yourself. This is quantum manifestation in its purest form, not a technique to be learned, but a truth to be lived, not a practice to be perfected, but a nature to be expressed. And the most beautiful part is that the more authentically you express yourself, the more the universe conspires to support that expression. But there's one final piece to this puzzle that ties everything together, something about the relationship between your personal frequency and the universal frequency that makes manifestation not just possible, but inevitable. Are you ready to discover the ultimate secret that makes you unstoppable as a conscious creator? Here's the ultimate secret that makes you unstoppable as a conscious creator, and it's so simple that most people miss it completely. The universal frequency, the creative force that spins galaxies and grows flowers and beats your heart, isn't something separate from you. It is you. You're not trying to align with the universe. You are the universe expressing itself as a human being. This changes everything about how manifestation works. You're not a small, separate being trying to get the attention of a vast, distant universe. You're the universe itself, temporarily focused through the lens of your individual consciousness. When you desire something, it's not your personal ego wanting more stuff. It's the universe itself seeking to express more of its infinite creativity through your unique perspective. This is why your desires feel so compelling, so persistent, so undeniable. They're not random wants generated by your mind. They're evolutionary impulses from the creative force itself, seeking to expand, express, and experience more of its own potential through your life. When you resist your desires or judge them as selfish, you're actually resisting the universe's impulse to create through you. Think about this for a moment. Every desire you've ever had, every dream that's ever stirred your heart, every vision that's ever inspired you, came from the same creative intelligence that designed your DNA, orchestrates the seasons, and maintains the perfect balance of forces that keeps planets in orbit. Your desires aren't accidents or distractions. They're cosmic instructions, guiding you toward your highest expression and greatest contribution. When you understand this, manifestation becomes effortless because you're no longer working against the universe. You're working as the universe. You're not trying to convince some external force to give you what you want. You're allowing the creative force that you are to express itself through your experience. You're not manifesting despite being human. You're manifesting because you're human, because being human is how the universe experiences desire and fulfillment simultaneously. This is why children manifest so naturally. They haven't learned to separate themselves from their creative impulses. When they want something, they don't question whether they deserve it or whether it's possible. They simply express the desire and trust that expression to create the experience. They're not trying to manifest. They're being the universe in human form, and manifestation is simply what the universe does. You had this same natural connection once. Before you learned to doubt your desires, before you started believing you were separate from the creative force, before you began thinking you needed permission to want what you want. That connection is still there, waiting for you to remember it, waiting for you to stop trying so hard and start trusting so completely that the quantum field has no choice but to respond to your authentic expression. But here's what makes this practical rather than just inspirational. When you truly recognize yourself as the universe in human form, you stop approaching manifestation from a place of need or lack. You start approaching it from a place of creative play. You're not desperately trying to get something you don't have. You're joyfully expressing something you are. This shift in energy changes everything about how the quantum field responds to you. Desperation creates resistance. Joy creates flow. Need creates struggle. Play creates ease. When you're manifesting from joy and play rather than need and desperation, you're broadcasting a frequency that the field finds irresistible. You become magnetic not because you're trying to attract something, but because you're expressing something so authentically that the universe can't help but support that expression. This is the ultimate quantum truth that no one wants you to discover. You are not a student of manifestation. You are manifestation itself, temporarily wearing the costume of a human being. You are not learning how to create. You are creation, learning how to experience itself through your unique perspective. Every moment you spend trying to become worthy of your desires is a moment you're denying the worthiness that you already are. Every technique you master is just a way of remembering what you never actually forgot. Every breakthrough you have is simply the universe recognizing itself in you and celebrating that recognition through your experience. So here's my invitation to you. Stop trying to manifest your desires and start being them. Stop trying to attract abundance and start expressing it. Stop trying to find love and start being it so completely that love finds you everywhere you look. Stop trying to create success and start embodying it so naturally that success becomes inevitable. The quantum field is waiting for you to remember who you really are. Not the small, struggling, separate self that the world has convinced you that you are, but the vast, creative, infinite being that you've always been. The moment you remember this, the moment you truly embody this truth, manifestation stops being something you do and becomes something you are. And when that happens, when you finally stop trying and start being, you'll realize that everything you ever wanted was never actually outside of you. It was always within you. waiting for you to stop looking everywhere else and start recognizing the creative masterpiece that you've been all along. The universe isn't holding your desires hostage until you prove you're worthy. The universe is your desires, expressing themselves through your human experience, waiting for you to say yes to the magnificent life that's already yours. All you have to do is stop trying so hard to become what you already are, and start being it so naturally that reality has no choice but to reflect that truth back to you in every moment of every day. If this resonates with something deep inside you, if you feel that spark of recognition, hit that subscribe button because you're part of a community that's remembering what it means to be fully human and fully divine, simultaneously. Drop one word in the comments that captures what you're feeling right now. And most importantly, go out into your life and be the quantum manifestation that you are, because the world is waiting for your unique expression of the infinite creative force that moves through all things. The secret was never hidden from you. The power was never outside of you. The abundance was never separate from you. You are the secret. You are the power. You are the abundance. Now go live like you know it.